hasn't reached 50 degrees. The ground has to reach 50 degrees for them to really start. If you see any green in the cane, it's probably alive. Probably around the time that the forsythia starts blooming, you'll see these little things here. These little, we call them basil buds. You'll see those. Wait until you see those to do anything.
Okay.
Yeah. You don't need to cut it if you don't have to.
Yeah, but it's got some, look like dead leaves on the top. Shouldn't I kind of?
Yeah, mine are covered, because mine, like I say, I don't cut them at all, so they're standing like this, and they've got dead leaves hanging all over them, and I'm just gonna go through and cut everything.
Well, I have one more problem. I cheated when I bought the plant. I left it in the container.
One of these things, they tell you to do that, but you can't. You can't
Well,
because
it's growing. It's about this high.
these things take forever.
Too late to cut that off and let them spread.
If you look at it and you see this bud union up above the ground, do it a favor and dig it a little deeper hole and put it down and take the pot off while you're at it. The pot, it will eventually break out of there, but it takes a long time.
Lasted a year.
They do. Somebody told me that they dug up one of these things like 6 years later and the pot was still there. And it was still growing.
Well, I just figured it would keep it in place and the roots would go, maybe.
It just takes them a long time to get out.
Those
But
roses, so.
yeah, don't ever be afraid to move a rose. If you don't like where it is, they don't mind being moved at all. It's best not to do it when it's over like 80 degrees. It's best to do it when it's temperate, like, 60, 70 degrees. I had to move a bunch of them in the middle of July, and everybody said, oh, you're gonna lose them. And I just dug them up and put them in a kiddie pool, and let them sit in a kiddie pool until I was ready to put them back in the ground. But after you transplant, water heavily, and they're fine. They don't mind being moved. I mean, generally, they're one of the sturdiest shrubs I find that there are. You can do pretty much anything you want to do with them. Yes?
Oh, you mentioned something about old roses, like that's something you can't buy anymore?
Oh, no, there are plenty of good antique roses on the market.
Not that I'm gonna buy it, I only have one rose bush. And it's very happy, and I think I've learned it's because I pretty much ignore them.
Yeah, they don't. It's amazing how,
My daughter gave it to me with a book and food, and I said, oh, this looks like work.
Oh, that's the attitude I've adopted over the years, is I've got too many now to fuss with them too much, and I give them what they really have to have, and they're happy. But,
well, I think I'll do some sauces this year.
Yeah, the antique roses, like I said, they're beautiful, and the fragrance is beautiful. The only drawback to them is that they only usually bloom that one time. That's how all roses were originally, and the hybridizers bred this one to that one, and they noticed that this one here was blooming a couple of more flushes. Maybe it bloomed 3 times a year, so they bred that to this other one, and that's, it's very interesting how they've bred roses over the years, the centuries. Most roses originated in China, and almost every continent had its own species roses, like multiflora or dog rose or any of those. But the more well-formed roses originally came from China, and they bred those with a lot of the native roses. And I mean, it's amazing what they still do to this day. I've got roses that are striped. I've got roses that are what they call hand painted. They'll have a lighter color, and they'll have red around the edges, just like you took a paintbrush and outlined the petals. Anybody else have roses? Yes.
I have a rose Shrike, which is an old garden rose, and I get that to bloom twice.
Yeah.
Once in the spring, once in the fall.
And generally not as heavy in the fall.
Not as heavy, and it looks kind of scraggly in between.
It's a nice rose, though.
Oh, it has a very nice.
It's a little disease problem to it. I think that's got a little bit of rugosa in it. Rugosa are the beach roses that when you go to the beach, you see them growing there in the sand. and they're very fragrant. And a lot of the older roses have some rugosa is something that they crossed into some of the antique roses to get more bloom. They use the rugosas for that.
That particular one tends to get, yeah, in the middle of the season when it's hot out, the leaves tend to turn kind of brown. They're not dried out, but it just loses its nice glossy leaves.
I've got that behind my house, and it probably doesn't get as much sun as it should there because.
Yeah, I got mine growing not a very sunny spot either.
It's worth it for the spring flush to have it, just because it's so pretty when it has that spring bloom that I'll always keep it for that reason. But mine I notice a lot of black spot. A lot of the older roses, they didn't know how to breed them to be more disease resistant. But I don't use a lot of spray. Yes, ma'am.
I have some old roses, and I heard you said you cut them after their bloom. But
yes.
Do you cut them as short as short?
If you need to, as they
They're
get
pretty
older
leggy.
and bigger, because they have long lifespans, they live a long time, you'll notice a lot of big dead canes in the center. It's kind of hard getting in there. I use like the long-handled pruners to get in there and get rid of those large. When the canes get bigger and bigger, sometimes you want to take out some of those big canes and encourage more small canes to grow. You'll have heavier flowering then.
Would you cut them?
Yep, you can cut them back short, you can cut them right close to the ground if you like, to encourage more new growth. But you don't be afraid to prune however you like. The most important thing is pruning out canes that grow in, that say they're crossing each other like this and rubbing on each other. You want to cut out that center of the bush so that there's good air circulation. Picture your hand like this, with the canes going out to each side like that, so that you've got a good open center. That's that, and don't ever be afraid to cut too short. The only thing that you can do is, if you've got a grafted rose, is to cut it. If you cut it here, all you're going to have is rootstock. Other than that, cut away. They love it. Anybody else?
Thank you. No,
Thanks for education.
And please, remember, Good Day Flowers on Main Street, and I'm sure if you're driving by and have any questions, she'll be happy to answer any questions in store.
Any questions you have about roses, or I grow other things besides roses, just drop in. Feel free to drop in and ask me. Just as I said, it's a new business, and in this economy, we are struggling a little bit, so I appreciate every bit of business that anyone can throw.
Let's buy local.
Buy local.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
everybody.
I sure do. Yes.
And I just want to remind everybody, we do a pancake breakfast the 2nd and 4th Friday of every month. On the 4th Friday, we have a speaker, and thank you again for coming.
It was my pleasure. And anybody wants to know anything, I've got all this material up here for you to take. The New England Rose Society has a sale. It's the first week in May. It's in Waltham at the UMass Field Station. And we handpick the roses from Roseland. It's what all of us grow in our own yards. It's roses that we like to recommend to people of all kinds. So.
I'm a member of the Rose Society, and I didn't know
And all
this
this
was
here.
here.
And this is something for you. Usually we give our guest speakers some flowers, but I didn't want to betray you by buying it in stock. Because I didn't want to spoil the surprise. But this is a little something from us. Thank you. Come back. You did a great job. Everybody, happy spring. Get ready.